So let's talk about a subject that's nice and comfortable: masturbation. I had this experience when I was active in the church. This was 4 years ago. My last effort as far as being active goes. And I'm sitting at church. This lady whose husband is a second counselor in the church. So if you're in the church, you know what that means. He's second counselor in the bishopric. If you're not in the church, there's a bishop, there's a first, second counselor. They sit up in front of the congregation and do a bunch of leadership stuff for the wards, which is the local. You see a lot of these churches in the neighborhoods. There's a church, there's a ward. They assign boundaries to the neighborhoods, and that's how you know which church to go to. So usually about 100, 150 people, somewhere in there. We're sitting there in the congregation. She's up there giving a talk, the wife of the second counselor, and basically just announces and then there's another masturbation addiction or pornography addiction, obviously referring to her husband, who is the second counselor. This poor guy is up there just I can't even imagine what he's thinking. I mean, it's so obvious she's alluding to him. What else would she be talking about? They've been married forever. And the amount of shame and guilt that is affiliated in the Mormon culture with masturbation. It's like one of the questions at an early age. I remember the bishop asking me, I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, just starting to get into the realm of this type of thing, and thought I discovered something new. And I go sit down in an interview, and the bishop's like, "Are you masturbating?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even know what you're talking about." Because the way he insinuated it, or the way he asked it, it just seemed like it was this dirty thing. I was like, "Oh, I would never do that. I didn't even know that was," And that finally I worked up the guts to tell the guy in my next bishop's interview. These bishop, if you're not in the church, I'm sorry, you're not going to understand a lot what I'm saying. If you are, and this is kind of directed towards the women in the Mormon church and some of the men. Hopefully you're past this. If you're still living in it, then I'm just going to give you a glimpse as to what it's like outside of that. And the relationship I have now is just nothing like the dynamics within the Mormon culture, especially around, the biggest problem. We don't drink, we don't drug, a lot of things we don't do, but the sexual stuff, the masturbation, I think it dovetails into a lot of more ugly, difficult, different areas because of how much we resonate in shame and guilt in the church over something that really is not a big deal once you get outside of the church. It's kind of a necessary tool to get by. I mean, geez, how, you can be a loving, caring husband and, be physiologically designed to ejaculate once a day and take matters into your own hands, pun intended, and still be a wonderful husband, loyal to your wife and your family and your kids, and not feel an ounce of guilt. If things are out of hand, you're getting into some weird shit, yeah, maybe you should hold off and consider where you're at, if there's compulsive behavior. But ultimately, the underlying issue is going to be much deeper than just, masturbation or pornography. If you're an addictive personality, if you got those type of things going on, you've probably got some psychological issues, mommy issues, some childhood traumas. You got all types of other things to address, and the compulsive behaviors in any capacity, even specific to and not limited to masturbation, are going to kind of work themselves out as you go through a spiritual awakening. But the church doesn't help it sometimes. Most times, my experience. I hope I see the church metamorphosizing and adapting in a lot of areas, and I hope this is one of them. So, off onto a rant, I got out. It happens. So, yeah, as a kid, I just remember fundamentally, deeply feeling like there was something wrong with me. When I finally got the guts to tell this guy in the interview, the second bishop interview I had, all he said was, "Oh yeah, don't do that. It'll give you a bad self-esteem." And he gave me a sucker. And, here I am in these closed doors, one-on-one with this guy who, it never got better. Like my last, I think 4 years ago, I was active in the church again. I got, long story, but decided to try it again and got back in there. All they want to know in the interview, I mean, are you paying your tithing? Are you a good person? Are you doing good things? I mean, a lot of the interview process to get into the temple and all the other criteria you have to do to advance within the hierarchies and layers of the church, you have to go through an interview process. And I wonder how often these guys that are interviewing us, what they're up to, man. Because we all go to church every Sunday and everyone pretends like they're perfect, like they're not doing anything. There's not this transparent culture in the Mormon church. It's like, "Oh, I'm perfect. I don't do anything." The guys that come across as the most perfect ones, ladies, I wish my husband was more like Mr. Jones, Brother Jones up there, or Brother Bob, whatever, because he probably never masturbates. You don't know what that dude's into. It's probably the worst of any of us. The guy that portrays this essence of perfection every week. The dude that can be totally honest and just be forthcoming in that type of relationship where you can be honest with each other and open and kind of have this level of understanding that guys are built differently than women. And, gosh, my girlfriend now, 2 years, like, she'll literally knock on the bedroom door, and just make sure I'm not masturbating in the shower. She'll be like, hey, just so you know, I'm coming in just in case you're, up to something. I'm like, it's so considerate, and it does not take away my love for her, my desire to be with her, anything like that. Even, I just love how nonchalant she is about it, and what a non-issue it is. Now, if I was defaulting to that and never attracted to her, and we were never having sex at all, and there was just never but sometimes she doesn't want to. She's like, no, I'm tired. It's a work day. I don't want to, so she doesn't fault me if I take matters into my own hands. I love it. It's such a good relationship. So one less thing for me to be in my head and for me to worry about all the time. So different than this paradigm of guilt and shame and this constant worry. Is anyone going to find out? Is she going to find out? I mean, I've had guys in the church, their wives catch them with, porn on their phone or something in their browser or whatever, or, even looking at a different girl or something like that. And it's like the end of the world. Like, oh my gosh, my husband's looking at porn. I can't believe it. Everything was he's a sex addict. Like, this stuff's got to stop, man. Tone it down. Chill out. It's like this big gotcha in the church. And the reality is, if you're not a guy, you're not going to understand. I tell my son, one of the biggest issues we'll have, and I'll wrap it up with this, one of the biggest problems we're going to have as men is trying to control what we do with our penis. Trying to satisfy the natural urge, second only to hunger and thirst, in a way that's healthy for us and not destructive. And it is the biggest challenge a man has. And I know women have their own challenges sexually and otherwise, but we are physiologically designed differently. Give us a freaking break. Chill out on it. If your husband's jerking off every once in a while because maybe, my buddy told me this. I'll wrap it up with this. You show me the hottest girl in the world, and I'll show you a guy that's tired of having sex with her. I think on the flip side of that a long-term relationship, the love you develop, creates a layer of sex and true love making that is second to none. That's the good stuff. That's the best out there. But the road that it takes, the road to get there, to where you're having meaningful, wonderful, loving, true intimate sex with your partner, with your wife, with your lover, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever it is. The road that it takes to get there is not going to be 100% every time you have a need, you go straight to them and, hey, can you take care of me real quick? I know you're trying to sleep, but dude, it's just not going to happen. Just, you got to be good to each other. You got to be open and transparent, be honest about it up front. I mean, that type of relationship is so hard in general. In the church, it's almost impossible, because they're going to, the females, and you've got a porn addiction. You masturbated. You can't even go to the church cuts you off in certain things. Well, don't masturbate for 6 months, and then I'll let you, do this and that. And then you find out what these guys. All right, so I'm repeating myself. You get the point. I got to tell you, there's so many things that are just. I love a lot of the principles in the church. There's some things that need to be ironed out a little bit. That's one of them. All right, thanks. Bye.